In 1982, NBC Universal purchased over 400 acres of land in Orlando, Florida. Due to the success of Universal Studios Hollywood in California, NBC was looking to expand this by opening another theme park that would act as both a theme park and a working film studio. Disney took a risk back in 1971 with the success of Disneyland Park in Anaheim, California by building and opening the Magic Kingdom, which would just be the start of the Walt Disney World Resort. 11 years later, in 1982, Disney would open their second park in Orlando with Epcot. Universal noticed Disney's success across the country and figured it was time for them to expand and add a new theme park to the growing Orlando market. Universal would officially announce and begin construction of Universal Studios Florida in 1986, costing around $630 million. Universal would then open the park 4 years later in 1990. The park would open with numerous attractions, including the likes of the production tram tour, due to the success of the tour over at Hollywood, Confrontation, E.T. Adventure, and so much more. One of the more ambitious attractions that would open with the park would be Jaws. Based on the mega blockbuster film by Steven Spielberg, this ride would be a guided boat tour through Amity Island. However, things would go awry as a giant great white shark is on the hunt. The ride was a hit among guests. However, it was plagued with numerous technical issues and would almost close for good just a couple months after its official opening. Guests today may know this area as Diagon Alley with Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, but it's time to take a look back and learn more about one of the most ambitious attractions Universal has ever built. This is the story behind Jaws. In 1975, Steven Spielberg's Jaws made a seismic impact on the movie industry. This film, a masterful blend of horror, thriller, and social commentary, not only set the standard as the first true summer blockbuster, but also reigned as the highest-grossing film until Star Wars would surpass it 2 years later. Praised for its compelling score and groundbreaking editing, Jaws garnished several awards and established itself as a defining success for Universal Pictures. Recognizing the film's immense popularity, Universal Pictures, under at the time MCA ownership, now known as NBC, sought to capitalize on the success as they ventured into the theme park arena. The studio aimed to bring their iconic great white shark into a tangible, immersive experience for guests. Demonstrating their enthusiasm, Universal swiftly integrated Jaws into the Hollywood studio tour. Remarkably, this new Jaws segment opened just 1 year after the film's debut, a testament to the studio's quick turnaround. The attraction featured a dedicated area designed to evoke the atmosphere of Amity Island, complete with sets of a New England-style area and the original Orca boat. Unfortunately, the boat was removed and dismantled for timber between 91 and 92. Visitors on the tram would navigate a boat dock adjacent to a lagoon, where they experienced the Jaws encounter firsthand. In a dramatic simulation, the dock would break away and gasoline barrels would ignite as the great white shark moved in for a thrilling up-close encounter. The Jaws experience proved to be immensely popular, and it would become a memorable part of the studio tour experience. Even though it's received some modifications over the years, you can still experience it to this day. However, the success of the Jaws attraction in Hollywood did not translate to Universal Studios Florida. When the park opened in Orlando, the anticipated Jaws attraction faced significant operational and technical difficulties, undermining what was meant to be a major highlight. Despite the initial promise and excitement, the grand debut of Jaws at Universal Studios Florida turned into a notable disappointment. So how did this all even happen? Universal wanted to give the Orlando park a full-blown attraction, not just a scene on their tram tour. So with the budget of around $30 million, they would carve out a 7-acre lagoon and load it with over 5 million gallons of water, along with over 1,100 feet of track and 2,000 miles of wiring. The slow-moving boat ride would take you around Amity Island on Captain Jake's boat tours. The ride was designed by NBC Universal in partnership with Ride and Show Engineering. They would also design the ride system, boat vehicle, and the Jaws animatronics featured throughout the ride. They would also work on other attractions in the park like Earthquake the Big One. Universal wanted this ride to feature some never-before-seen elements to separate this ride from the rest, especially since Disney recently opened their movie studio theme park Disney MGM Studios the year prior to rival Universal. The original concept for the ride was essentially based on the movie. Following the destruction of the shark nicknamed Jaws by Chief Brody, Matt Hooper, and Quentin in 1974, Brody's heroism became legendary at Amity Harbor. The infamous Jaws incident later inspired Steven Spielberg's acclaimed Hollywood film. However, the aftermath led to a significant decline in tourism on Amity, due to heightened fears of sharks. In response to the drop in visitors, local Jake Grundy launched a new boat tour designed to revive the island's tourism. This tour takes guests on a scenic cruise to the historical sites where the shark attacks occurred during the summer of 1974, which gained fame through the Hollywood movie. The tour boat, operated by one of Captain Jake's experienced skippers, would take you around Amity Island. Universal essentially asked Ride and Show Engineering to design a simple boat ride system that would interact with different shark animatronics, including the likes of an indoor scene and a scene where a shark physically bites the boat and drags it around. Ride and Show Engineering would essentially design a sequence where the shark would attach to a half turntable that would move along with the boat as it whizzes past. However, programming the animatronic and syncing it with the boat's movements would be quite challenging. Finally, at the very end of the ride, they would also design an important element. This diagram illustrates the mechanism used in the final scene of the 1990 version, also known as the Meat Machine. This underwater explosion effects simulator features a submerged shooter designed to project props such as shark flesh and red dye color through the surface of the water. Here's an overview of its operation. A compressed air source powers the shooter, propelling water and shark flesh from the shooter during the explosion sequence. Pieces of the shark flesh are expelled from the shooter, traveling through the water and landing on a submerged collector that surrounds the shooter. This collector can be adjusted via an underwater winching system, moving between two positions: the collection position where the shark flesh accumulates, and the funnel position where gravity causes the flesh to fall back into the shooter. The shooter extends from a loading position beneath the collector to a shooting position near the water's surface. Yes, this sounds insanely complicated, especially for a ride back in the 90s that did not have the technology we have today. As the ride began the testing phase after construction slowly began to wrap, most of these effects repeatedly failed, prompting the manufacturer and Universal to work tirelessly to address the issues. Despite countless adjustments and test cycles, the ride struggled to perform consistently. As opening day approached, testing would continue. Universal would begin to realize the technology used in this ride would just simply not be able to handle daily operations. The situation was exacerbated when the ride failed to operate properly, even with executives on board and Steven Spielberg in attendance. During testing, a management member noted the ride needed further work, and Steven Spielberg himself said, "You're going to have to do a lot more than that," suggesting that the ride required substantial creative improvements, and this was right before opening day. Described as an engineering nightmare by a former MCA executive, the ride's complex design and persistent issues led some with the ride show engineering to view Jaws as a fundamentally flawed concept. Despite these concerns, development continued, with adjustments rapidly being made at the last second. As the opening day approached, the pressure mounted. Anticipation was high, fueled by elaborate advertisements including a 3D Jaws billboard. Then opening day was here. The park would finally open to the public on June 7, 1990. For a movie theme park filled with blockbusters, Universal Studios' Florida debut was anything but. This day was plagued with extreme technical issues and thousands of disappointed guests. Shortly into the day, a power outage and operational complications affected the park's major attractions, including Confrontation and Earthquake, the big one. Jaws, on the other hand, faced even more significant challenges. The ride was closed for most of the day, with park personnel attributing the downtime to potential lightning in the area when that was clearly a lie, because the weather was super clear. In the days that followed, many attractions at the park were operationally reduced to technical rehearsals. However, Jaws just remained completely closed for maintenance, only reopening for technical rehearsals that weekend. The limited operations of Jaws was generally well received, even though several effects were malfunctioning. Due to the absence of numerous effects, some skippers were forced to improvise. They would even make remarks such as, "Imagine explosions over there," to enhance the experience. While Jaws was far from perfect, its partial reopening was a step forward. The original Jaws would have guests board large inflatable pontoon cruisers designed to look intentionally flimsy as part of the ride's narrative. Each boat was piloted by live skippers, who played a crucial role in the experience. The attraction commenced with the pass by Quint's shack, where the Orca boat was docked outside. Riders overheard Quint arguing about a hanging shark that wasn't their own, while the skipper reassured them of the safety of the waters as the tour continued. The upbeat tone of the tour was abruptly interrupted by a distress call from another boat. Instantly shifting the atmosphere, guests had witnessed a similar tour boat sinking bow first into the lagoon, with no survivors in sight. Panic ensued as a fin emerged from the water, searching for its next prey before vanishing below the surface. The massive shark reappeared on the starboard side of the pontoon. The panicked skipper grabbed the grenade launcher, firing several shots that missed the shark. Following a tense radio exchange with the chief, the skipper navigated into a nearby boathouse for safety. The building marked with the sign reading Jay's Boathouse is a nod to Jay Stein, the president of Universal Studios Florida at the time. The Great White broke into the boathouse, allowing riders to see its full menacing form and sharp teeth. An elaborate Jaws animatronic lunged at the pontoon boat in the dimly lit boathouse. The ride's final scenes were its most ambitious. Once you escaped the boathouse, the tour boat continued its journey, but the shark was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, the shark would burst from the water, attacking the flimsy pontoon and dragging it across the lagoon. As the tour pressed on, the menacing fin resurfaced, swimming towards the boat, diving underneath and bumping it. The shark made one final dramatic appearance, charging out of the water with its mouth open to attack. The skipper fired another grenade, which landed directly in the shark's mouth. As Jaws retreated underwater, the delayed explosion occurred. Following this, the boat would return to the dock, allowing guests to disembark. A major issue with the ride was the attack scene, which relied on that turntable effect featuring two synchronized elements, the boat and the shark. Unfortunately, these elements moved independently, necessitating precise timing from the skipper as he would actually pilot the boat, which was often inconsistent. As a result, the boat and the shark frequently failed to align, leading to an awkward and anticlimactic moment. The challenge was compounded by the resistance of the water, while further complicated the coordination of multiple moving parts. Additionally, the animatronic shark was equipped with real shark teeth, which tended to fall out if the boat actually made contact with the animatronic. This has not only made the shark appear unrealistic, but also risked damaging the boat and the animatronic. The frequent failure of this effect was only part of the problem. Park executives, fully aware of the ride's issues, sought to make adjustments. Despite numerous efforts, Jaws remained nearly inoperable, struggling with persistent and heavy technical difficulties. Universal finally decided to pull the plug on August 22, 1990, just 2.5 months after the grand opening. Given the ride's persistent issues, legal action unfortunately was almost inevitable. The first lawsuit occurred while the ride was still in operation. A 39-year-old guest fell into the water after his restraint allegedly malfunctioned. While most of the lagoon was relatively shallow, the guest fell into one of the deeper pits designed for the sharks. The skipper acted swiftly, pressing the emergency stop button to halt the ride and its effects. The guest was promptly retrieved and sustained no injuries. Reports of the incidents varied, with some of the witnesses initially believing the fall was part of the show. The guest subsequently sued Universal for $1 million, alleging negligence and inadequate maintenance. The second lawsuit emerged after the ride's closure. Universal Studios faced substantial financial losses from shutting down Jaws, which involved a $30 million investment plus additional costs for repairs. In response, Universal filed a 40-page lawsuit against the ride manufacturer, Ride and Show Engineering. The park accused the manufacturer of poor workmanship and a defective design, including underwater animatronics that were not fully waterproof. The manufacturer contended that the park rushed development schedule led to insufficient testing of key effects before installation. They argued that proper testing might have prevented the malfunctions. Furthermore, the ride was designed to operate in filtered water, but Universal allegedly mixed clay into the lagoon to obscure the water mechanisms, which inadvertently caused complications with the equipment. Ride and Show Engineering's chief executive commented that Universal lacked the experience needed to maintain the complex ride effectively. With all of this back and forth, the dispute was eventually settled the following year. After closing Jaws in 1990, rather than scrapping the concept and attraction altogether, Universal remained determined to make the ride operational again. To achieve this, Universal engaged third-party consultants to undertake a redesign that will lead to the re-engineering, rebuilding, and reopening of Jaws in 1991. The initial strategy involved automating the boats and reinforcing the mechanical structures. However, Universal shortly realized that the necessary repairs were way more extensive than anticipated. The ride required a comprehensive overhaul rather than a simple refurbishment. One major discovery was weld cracks in the base of key framework structures, which compromised the ride's stability and posed a risk for catastrophic failure, especially with it mostly being underwater. Then, the lagoon was drained and a thorough and extensive repair process was deemed necessary to address these critical issues. This would cost the park millions of dollars and would extend the closure of the attraction even more. Universal would infamously turn the entrance of the attraction into a temporary barbecue restaurant to at least have something in the Amity section of the park. And they would use the queue space for Universal Fright Nights for the Dungeon of Terror Haunted House. Universal decided to dismantle the original Jaws ride system and effects and animatronics, remaining only the lagoon structure and theme sets, basically doing a complete restart on the attraction. The old boats were sold to MGM Grand Adventure in Las Vegas for their Backlot River Tour. After suffering significant financial loss, Universal used this period to reassess both the creative and engineering aspects of the attraction. On the creative front, Universal developed a more engaging script for the skippers. The original Jaws ride featured a basic and reactive dialogue, so the revised script aimed to be more captivating, incorporating new scenes to replace the problematic effects and adding more solidity to the skipper's experience. The updated version of Jaws eliminated the problematic boat attack scene and the meat machine, focusing instead on reliability and enhanced experiences. Several contractors were enlisted for this ambitious project. Oceaneering Entertainment Systems, known for its expertise in deep-sea robotics, designed the new shark animatronics. These sharks, made of fiberglass and latex with steel frames, were mounted on hydraulic lifts to ensure they could powerfully and safely navigate through the water's resistance. The Nassau Company, with their extensive experience in designs for Universal, constructed the new show sets. Regal Marine Industries built the new boats, and Intamin was responsible for the track and motion-based ride system. They also have created numerous rides for Universal parks worldwide and continue to this day. iTech Entertainment developed the ride's control system, including the programming for movement and triggers. The overhaul of Jaws came at a combined cost of approximately $70 million, doubling plus an extra $10 million more than the original ride. Reflecting the substantial investment required, to ensure the ride met Universal's high standards, the team conducted rigorous fine-tuning, cycling the ride day and night. Due to the inability to reverse ride vehicles, even minor adjustments required a full cycle through the attraction. This meticulous process was essential for achieving the desired quality. Finally, in August of 1993, 3 years after the original ride's closure, Jaws would finally begin technical rehearsals. Universal adopted a more patient approach this time, with technical rehearsals lasting several months and around 500,000 guests experiencing the ride during this period. Jaws officially reopened at Universal Studios Florida on October 1st, 1993, with a grand ceremony attended by Steven Spielberg and several stars from the original film. The ride began in familiar territory. Guests entered the festive Amity Island area, celebrating the 4th of July. The town circle still featuring the iconic hanging shark photo op, where families created lasting memories for years. According to the attraction's backstory, this was the real Amity Island, and Spielberg's blockbuster was merely a dramatized retelling of the 1974 shark attacks. Following the incident, Amity's tourism suffered economically, but Captain Jake's Amity Boat Tours was on a mission to revive it. The Jaws queue meandered through the rustic boathouse of Captain Jake's Amity Boat Tours, adorned with nautical decorations and authentic props from the movie, including Chief Brody's jacket. In the queue, guests watched a 50-minute video titled "Hey There, Amity," which showcased local programming. The channel featured advertisements for Amity's businesses as well as Ocean Spray, an early sponsor of the ride. The video also included talk show segments with characters perpetrated to be the real-life counterparts of those from the film. The real Mayor Vaughn dismissed the shark attacks. The real Hooper defended his portrayal in the movie. And someone claiming to be Quint asserted that he survived the attack. At the dock, guests boarded the new tour boats, which featured tier seating for up to 48 passengers. These upgraded diesel-powered boats were noticeably sturdier than the old pontoon versions, and now operated with all automated controls. The life skipper had no real control over the boat except for e-stops, instead performing the role of a guide while pretending to steer and navigate. The skippers were now much more involved in the storytelling rather than the physical aspects of the attraction. The new Jaws ride retained a similar structure to the original, though it had been extensively re-engineered. It still operated within a massive 7-acre lagoon holding 5 million gallons of water. The lagoon maintained its central island with realistic New England-style building facades, preserving the quaint seaside town ambience. This extensive and convincing environment helped create a sense of isolation from the outside world. The ride offered a tour of the real Amity Island, highlighting the sites from the infamous 74 shark attacks that inspired the 75 film. As the boat prepared to leave, a voice from Amity Base provided by the ride's show director cleared them for departure. The ride commenced with a cue from its soundtrack. While the skipper and passengers waved goodbye to the onlookers at the dock, in the new iteration, the skipper introduced the tour and pointed out Chief Brody's home across the lagoon. The initial scenes were similar to the original ride, except without Quint's intense conversation. A distressed call from another tour boat came over the radio, prompting for the tour to circle the lighthouse where they discovered a sinking boat. A fin emerged near the wreckage, dove beneath the boat, and reappeared on the starboard side. The tension escalated as a 25-foot shark stalked the boat. After a call from base, the skipper grabbed a grenade launcher, an admittedly dramatic touch, and fired at the shark twice before retreating to a nearby boathouse where the orca was docked. Inside the dim, cool boathouse, the skipper turned off the engine. The eerie silence and ambient dripping sounds, combined with the foreboding glow from the water, created a truly cinematic atmosphere. The nervous skipper swept the boat's lights around, reacting to every noise in the confined space. The scene featured enhanced effects with boats and cargo crashing around as the shark attempted to break in. The climactic moment arrived when Jaws burst through and charged at the boat, creating one of the most intense moments on the ride. Finally, the skipper managed to restart the boat and escape the boathouse. The subsequent scenes diverged from the original ride, eliminating the previous shark attack and meat machine sequence. Back on open water, the shark had vanished. Chief Brody radioed that he'd arrive in 10 minutes. The skipper would iconically respond,
10 minutes? Chief, we're gonna be shark bait in 10 minutes, where is he?
As the shark lunged at the boat, the skipper's attempt to shoot missed, causing a gas dock on shore to explode. Large equipment toppled, a barrel soared into the sky, and the lagoon erupted into flames. There was no apparent escape. The scene was exceptionally hot, too. Some guests reported that the heat was almost unbearable, though it could have been a combination of sunburn and intense flames. In fact, the ride's creative team would even say they wanted to push the realism of this flame effect by cranking it up just enough for you to truly feel the heat without getting burned. The skipper navigated through the fire just as it began to dissipate, reaching the final stretch. Approaching a dock for evac, the skip faced one last challenge. The shark's fins surfaced and charged at the boat, disappearing into the wake. As the boat neared a high-voltage barge, the shark attacked again. Accidentally biting into an electrical cable, sparks and steams erupted, and the shark sank. It resurfaced, fried from the voltage, reminiscent of the electric finale from Jaws 2. With the shark defeated and emitting a burnt odor, everyone on board survived, and the skipper declared,
Call off those Marines, cause we are coming home!
Guests would then park at the dock and exit off the boat, concluding their experience on Jaws. In a nutshell, the revamped Jaws was a thrilling upgrade. The boat's motion base delivered a powerful experience, and the addition of massive animatronic sharks intensified the action. The open-air setting on the water added a genuine sense of scale and unpredictability, with the constant unease of not knowing what lurked beneath the surface. No other attraction could match this unique blend of isolation and tension that Jaws offered. The new version of Jaws finally fulfilled Universal's goal. It was reliable, unlike its predecessor, and most guests could finally experience Jaws firsthand. It felt right to have Jaws back at Universal. However, despite its many improvements, the new Jaws ride did come with its own set of challenges. Being an outdoor attraction, it was susceptible to weather-related delays, particularly Central Florida's notorious afternoon showers. There were lots of issues as well, like the infamous duck stops. On one occasion, a duck landed on a special effect during the ride, startling a guest. As a result, skippers were instructed to halt the ride if any ducks were at risk. The ride also faced many more complex problems. Its maintenance was challenging. Due to the water, some repairs required certified scuba divers or even draining the entire lagoon, though the sharks could be elevated via lift platforms for easier servicing. The animatronics themselves were prone to breakdowns. While not as faulty as the original ride, they still required frequent attention. The shark skins needed to be replaced every 6 months, and other parts had to be custom made. Additionally, the animatronics sometimes leaked hydraulic fluid, which contaminated the lagoon water and occasionally turned into a disturbing lime green. These leaks also impacted local stormwater ponds when the lagoon was then drained. The US Environment Protection Agency prompted Universal to revise its lagoon water practices. The park switched to a more environmentally friendly hydraulic fluid and implemented better drainage solutions. The ride would close annually for extensive maintenance, during which the lagoon was drained and team members had to scrub the sludge from the bottom to ensure cleanliness. The Jaws ride was super complex and costly to operate. Its expenses extended beyond typical attractions due to several factors. especially since draining and refilling the lagoon would require millions of gallons of water. Each ride vehicle required a staff member to handle the spilling, making the hourly labor costs higher compared to standard rides. The combination of operational duties and entertainment added to the overall expense. One significant cost was the explosion effect, which consumed around $2 million in natural gas annually. Sure, it's better than the meat machine, but it's still very costly. Diesel fuel for the boats further inflated costs, and these expenses increased when Universal transitioned to a more eco-friendly diesel. The situation worsened in 2005 when fuel prices surged in Florida after Hurricane Katrina. During the period of declining attendance, Universal Orlando temporarily closed Jaws to manage the rising fuel costs. Although the ride was initially seasonal, the flood of guest complaints led to its reopening in 2006 to daily operations. Over the years, Jaws experienced a roller coaster of success and challenges, from the failure of the original version to the popularity of its successor, as well as mechanical issues and the dedication of its fans. Now over a decade into operation and having outlasted other opening day attractions like Confrontation, Universal Studios has evolved significantly. Despite its storied past, it was clear that the intricate Jaws ride could not last forever. In 2010, Universal's Islands of Adventure bid farewell to Merlinwood, a section of the Lost Continent, to make room for the highly anticipated and expansive addition, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. The opening of Hogsmeade in 2010 introduced thrilling new experiences, including the rebranded Dragon Challenge, formerly Dueling Dragons, the transformed Flight of the Hippogriff, previously the Flying Unicorn, and the groundbreaking new Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. This expansion marked Universal's boldest challenge yet to Walt Disney World, bringing an attraction so immersive that it drew visitors from across the globe. The immense success of this new land and the enduring popularity of the Harry Potter franchise made it clear that further expansion was necessary. With this in mind, Universal sought to introduce another iconic location from the Harry Potter series. In late 2011, Universal announced the closure of Jaws. A ride that has become a staple of the park had to go. The decision influenced by the high maintenance cost of Jaws and the park's trend of replacing older attractions with newer technologies. Jaws was set to be replaced by Diagon Alley and a new roller coaster designed by Intamin. Fans flocked to Jaws for its final ride on January 2nd, 2012. With wait times reaching a max of 90 minutes, the beloved attraction then closed its doors permanently, making way for the new addition. 2.5 years later, Diagon Alley would officially open on July 15, 2014, and it continues to enchant guests with its immersive experiences to this day. Even with Jaws no longer operating, Universal Studios Florida still pays homage to the classic ride. The park features subtle nods to Spielberg's 1975 film and still displays the Bruce the Shark photo op in San Francisco. Though Jaws is deeply missed in Orlando, it remains a highlight of the studio tour in Hollywood and continues to thrill visitors at Universal Studios Japan. In Florida, Jaws left a lasting legacy, remembered as one of Universal's most celebrated attractions and a significant milestone in theme park history. Despite its challenges, the ride captivated guests for years and cemented its place as an iconic piece of Universal's heritage. Jaws may be gone, but its impact on the amusement industry endures, ensuring its memory lives on at Universal Studios forever. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed my latest episode of The Story Behind. If you're eager to explore more episodes, be sure to check out my playlist right here, which features every edition of this series. For POVs and footage of attractions from around the globe, visit my second channel, TPH Productions. As always, it's Hunter from Theme Park Hunting, and I'll see you all later.